Sickle cell disease is a serious inherited condition that affects your blood and different organs in your body. Usually, sickle cell disease appears among people of African descent. 1 out of every 500 African Americans are born with the sickle cell trait. People with sickle cell disease usually have hemoglobin S, which is abnormal. Some people may be asking themselves, what is hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is a protein that helps carry oxygen from our lungs to all the organs in our body. People who do not have the sickle cell trait have hemoglobin A. People who do have the sickle cell trait have hemoglobin S. Red blood cells containing hemoglobin A are disc-shaped, which allows the blood to easily pass through large and small blood vessels. Red blood cells that contain hemoglobin S have the ability to turn into long rods that changes the shape of the red cells into a crescent moon. As the sickled hemoglobin is traveling through the vessels, it can clump together, causing blockages to tissues. When a blockage occurs, there is no blood flow to that organ or tissue. This causes pain. Many people will ask, where does this pain develop? What other cells and organs are affected? Infections are common and an important cause of severe complications in sickle cell patients. Streptococcus pneumonia and Haemophilus influenza are the most common organisms causing infection in children with sickle cell disease. Strokes may also occur since they are usually caused by blockages of vessels carrying oxygen to the brain. Your liver is also at risk. Enlargement of the liver occurs in over half of the sickle cell patients. Most patients need transfusions. What is a transfusion? A transfusion is the act of transferring donated blood into the circulatory system of a person. A transfusion is normally done due to the blockages of blood flow to specific organs or tissues. Sickle cell disease can also cause damage to blood vessels in the eye. This can soon cause scarring and detachment of the retina, which will eventually lead to blindness. Alternative places that someone with sickle cell disease may find severe pain and permanent damage is the heart, the kidneys, the bones, and the spleen. The sickle cell trait is recessive, meaning there's less of a chance that you will get this disease. Those with sickle cell disease have a mutation on the hemoglobin beta gene. This is chromosome number 11. Once we figured out what chromosome this mutation was affecting, we were able to interpret that sickle cell disease is autosomal. Sickle cell is caused by mutations on the HBB gene, also known as the hemoglobin beta gene. One specific HBB mutation produces an abnormal version of beta globin. This is known as hemoglobin S. Other mutations in the HBB gene are hemoglobin C. People who have sickle cell disease must have at least one of the beta globin subunits replaced with hemoglobin S. There are a few types of sickle cell disease. In sickle cell anemia specifically, hemoglobin S replaces both beta globin subunits. In other types of sickle cell disease, only one beta globin subunit is replaced with hemoglobin S. The second beta globin subunit is reestablished with a different abnormal variable like hemoglobin C or hemoglobin E. Recently, various tests and studies have been done to show that there are few environmental influences that affect those with sickle cell disease. One environmental factor that affects those with sickle cell disease is temperature. Majority of patients with sickle cell disease live in tropical climates because they say that exposure to the cold results in pain within hours. This is because the velocity of blood flow is reduced. A study in London showed that wind speed was another environmental factor that affected those with sickle cell disease. This test took over 1,400 days. They found that higher wind speeds brought more adults and children into the hospital than days with low wind speeds. Humidity was another environmental factor that affected those with sickle cell disease. After all the studies were brought together, it was obvious that humidity was causing pain, either lots of pain or minimal amount of pain, to those with sickle cell disease. The people in Canada that had sickle cell disease said that humidity bothered them, causing them to have a lot of pain. Those in Keewat said that humidity only bothered them a little, bringing them pain but not too much. Fortunately, rainfall did not bother those with sickle cell disease. It brought them zero pain and they were able to be in the rain for as long as they liked. After doing lots of research and looking deeper into sickle cell disease, we were able to figure out what is the stronger determining factor, nature or nurture? Instantly, some people ask, what is the difference? Nature deals with the basic or genetic features of sickle cell disease. On the other hand, nurture has to do with the environmental factors that affect sickle cell disease and the different care they are given. From here, we were able to make our claim. Our claim is, although nurture has different side effects on sickle cell disease, nature has more effects and takes a more dominant role in sickle cell disease. This means that sickle cell disease deals with more genetics than environment. Our first piece of evidence is that this disease must be inherited from your parents. When something is inherited, it is derived genetically from one parent, meaning you must have identical genes from that parent. This goes back to the claim about nature being more dominant because the only way to have this trait is if you inherit one gene from a parent, and the only way to have the actual sickle cell disease is if you inherit both genes from your parents. Our second piece of evidence involves the hemobeta gene, also known as the HBB gene. The HBB gene plays a major role in mutation. This gene is the one that has a mutation. When one person has this gene, they are guaranteed the trait. If this gene is mutated and has HBS, then you have sickle cell disease. This relates to nature in the sense that when people continue to have kids, they continue the cycle. This gene is constantly being inherited by more and more people in their family. Our last piece of evidence deals with sickle cell disease being affected by nurture. Like we said earlier in the talk, humidity, wind, and temperature affect sickle cell disease. They cause someone to have more symptoms, such as more pain in specific areas of their body. This goes back to nurture because wind, humidity, and temperature are all factors that we can control.